Hello, this is Aaron Rosen, your local real estate agent in Northern California. Today, I just wanted to show you an interesting article that I found. Housing market predictions for 2024. When will home prices be affordable again? This is the $64,000 question. This is the $1,000,000 question that all my clients want to know. When is the housing market going to crash, and by how much? Let's see what they actually say in this article here. So this is from Forbes.com, which is fairly decent, but let's go ahead and put our scrutiny caps on and see what we can figure out. What many had hoped would be a rosy spring home buy-in season ended as a thorny challenge for many prospective home buyers already demoralized by a frustrating market. Yet, even as sales stalled amid elevated mortgage rates and home prices, one silver lining emerged. More real estate inventory entered the market. This I can confirm. There have been about 3,500 listings, new listings, in the last week alone in Northern California, which is pretty decent. Not all of those are being sold, and there's a lot of price reductions, so we're kind of building up a glut in the inventory right now, and that will bring prices down. I've been iterating this in some other videos. I've been seeing people drop houses by as much as 30% overnight without anyone asking. That just begs the question, what are they going to do in another 30 days or another 3 months or 6 months? Are they going to bring it down another 30%? Maybe. Let's read on and see what's going on. Other good news for home shoppers is a decline in the median price for a new home. Now below the median resale home price, even as builders continue offering incentives to lure buyers. Nonetheless, experts say that the housing market will only see renewed momentum once mortgage rates drop enough to ease homebuyer affordability obstacles and incentivize homeowners locked in at new rates to move. That is also true. So basically, for every point that interest rates come down, mathematically, to get the same payments, monthly payments, the house would have to go up around 15%. So that's part of the supply and demand here. We all know what happened when interest rates crashed to zero, and then everything shot way, way up after COVID there. Okay, let's just continue. Unfortunately, hopeful home buyers continue to see a delay in the yearned-for transformation. Thanks to several ongoing headwinds, one is inflation taking its sweet time cooling off, further delays in the Federal Reserve cutting the federal funds rate. Now, here's an idea that I've been playing with. I think that the federal funds rate should perhaps be different for each state because we have different conditions here in California than we do in, let's say, Texas or Vermont. And interest is going to be different as a result of that. And inflation is different in different places. You can look all this up. But the idea that there's one federal funds rate that controls the housing market for 50 different states is actually ludicrous when you think about it. I'm going to make a video about this, but let's move on. Oh, and just one other thing. 45% of people own their homes outright with no mortgages. So why those people would love to sell their house and get all that cash, when they look into buying a new house, the payments on it are just so high that it detracts them. They say, yeah, I could get a lot of cash, but I would simply just spend that all on interest. So when interest comes down, that's going to free up a lot of the inventory. Mortgage rates indirectly track the benchmark interest rates banks use as a guide for overnight lending. Consequently, with federal funds rate at its highest level in over 2 decades, mortgage rates and borrowers are feeling the added impact of their ability to afford a home. Meanwhile, U.S. home prices remain unaffected by persistent high mortgage rates, posting an annual 6.3% gain in April. That's huge. That's almost double the 20-year average. According to the latest S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Home Price Index, I know that's a mouthful, but it's actually a really good index, that one. Even as this annual market marked a slowdown from the 6.5% in March, the index is still broke the previous month's record high. Many experts expect a Fed rate cut will help stimulate the housing market, but it remains unclear and when a single cut will occur. Okay, will the housing market finally recover in 2024? We're in the last quarter here basically coming up. So when they're saying for 2024, it's kind of nonsense, actually. We have to be looking forward into 2025 at this point. For a housing recovery to occur, several conditions must unfold. For the best possible outcome, we need to see investors of homes for sale turn considerably higher. This additional inventory in turn would ease the upward pressure on home prices, leveling them off or perhaps helping them to settle back somewhat from a peak or near peak level. Of course, mortgage rates would need to cool off, which seems promising given the recent declines. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate remains consistent in July, coming in at 6.78 for the week ending July 25th, a minor increase from 6.77. So it's actually been going up. It did just kind of cool off a bit, and now it's turning back up again. However, when mortgage rates finally go on the descend, Gumbringer says, don't hope to cool off too quickly. Rapidly falling rates could create a surge in demand that wipes any investment gains, causing home prices to rebound. And that's actually true depending on the market, but in COVID, there was about a 3-month window there when it was the best time. Everybody was deadly afraid of buying houses for obvious reasons, but interest rates were still at zero. As that fear waned off, housing prices shot way, way up, and the total amount of interest on a $600,000 house was a $200,000 difference between 0 and 5%. That's huge. A $200,000 difference in just a few months. So the point of this is you have to be prepared. So as interest rates go down, usually that's because there's some sort of bad thing that happens in the economy and they're trying to stimulate the economy. That makes it harder to get loans. But if you're in a position to get a loan, this is actually a golden opportunity. So what I suggest is clear up your debt to income ratio in that time. Pay off your car. Take care of your credit card debts. Stuff like that will help you be in a position to be able to buy a house before everybody else is. Better that rate reductions happen at a metered pace, incrementally improving buyer opportunities over a stretch of time rather than all at once. That depends how prepared you are. If you're prepared, then it's going to be good for you, bad for everybody else. He adds that mortgage rates returning to normal, upper 4 to lower 5%, would also help the housing market over time, return to 2014 to 2019 levels. Yet Gumbringer predicted it could be a while before we return to those rates. And if you haven't heard, there's a NAR settlement, which is a National Association of Realtors, and that's going to play into this as well. Following years of litigation, the NAR has agreed to pay $418 million to settle a series of high-profile antitrust lawsuits filed in 2019 on behalf of home sellers. I'm just going to paraphrase this, but basically, the way that buyers' agents would get paid is the buyer would take, let's say they get a loan for $1 million. That $1 million then goes to the seller. That seller then disperses between 2 and 5% to the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. This new lawsuit said that that is no longer the standard way that has to be applied. So probably about 80% of deals are going to continue to do that. And the deals that I'm seeing right now on our local MLS, which is a multiple listing service, are still done that way. So we'll see how this ultimately affects it. But what it does is it just opens up the market and takes away some of the constraints. You know, here's the thing about real estate. Everything's negotiable. The price, the terms, the agent's commission. So what this does is it brings more free market into the real estate market, and more free market action into the real estate market. And ultimately, while this may be a little confusing and take a while to play out, this will ultimately be good. Okay. If you sold a home in the last 10 years, you may be eligible for a small piece of the settlement. That's right. Visit this website, which I will link below, to find out more about it. Housing inventory forecast. When will there be sufficient to reduce prices? You know what? I'm just going to skip this. Well, I'm going to read this, but I already know that this is BS. And the reason is I made a video on this, and I'll try to link it below, or just look. Okay, brief intermission, client phone call. So basically, we're talking about the supply. And here's the real truth of it. When I come down to this map, this isn't the map for it, but I'll just tell you right now, half of the land that is west of the Mississippi here is owned by the federal government, and only 2% on the East Coast. So maybe, just maybe, they should release a little bit of that land. You know, they could also do some tax incentives for, even where I'm at, there's tons and tons of wineries. I'm just taking a guess, half of the land over here is dominated by wineries in Sonoma County. Maybe you could say, hey, sell 2% of your land and we won't tax you on it. And then we could build, 30% more homes and fix this. That's how you actually fix the crisis. Let's see what they say here, but I'm just going to tell you from my perspective, it's instantly not going to help because no one's talking about the real reasons in which this could help. And that's going to be freeing up land, reducing building taxes, codes, and regulations, and also, we have to give people incentives. Okay. Despite more real estate homes entering the market, the inventory shortage remains severe and likely for some time. For many homeowners remain locked in at ultra-low mortgage rates, unwilling to exchange for a higher rate in the high-priced housing market. Consequently, demand continues to outpace supply, and likely for a while. I don't expect to see a meaningful increase in supply of existing homes for sale until mortgage rates are back down in the low 5%. So this is tackling one side of it, and that's going to be the mortgage side. But to me, that's actually the smallest side of this. New home construction has provided some relief, but not enough to fill the inventory gap meaningfully. The U.S. remains 4.5 million homes short, up from 4.3 million homes a year ago, according to Zillow Analytics. Entry-level home supply is particularly dire, contributing to an ongoing cycle of propped-up demand. Yeah, and another reason is because the average home that's built these days is over 2,000 square feet. Most people, entry-level home buyers, are not going to be able to afford a 2,000 square foot home. In Santa Rosa here, where I'm at, generally about a 1,300 square foot home, a 3-2, let's just say a standard home, will be around $650 to $750. A 2,000 square foot home will be more like $850 or $950. So that difference of a couple of $100,000 that builders have to do because of all the different rules and regulations squeezes a lot of homeowners out of that first-time home buying. So, as you can just see from here, typical home values by state. California is the most expensive state. Value 1 year ago, okay, let's start with today's value of $806,000. Value 1 year ago is $50,000, and 5 years ago is $55,000. So, when we look at this, home prices in California are appreciating at currently, and according to historical trends, $50,000 a year. That's over $2,000 a month. So you can do the math on this, and if you think, well, I'd like to buy in 3 years. Okay, home prices, they may be $150,000 higher. So generally, the best time to buy a home is yesterday, and the best time to buy a home is today. If you think that home rates are going to go down and prices over the next 18 months, go ahead and wait. It's almost never worth it to wait 3 to 5 years to buy a home, just mathematically. And the reason is because basically you get to keep half of your mortgage in the form of equity. So if you're paying, let's just say $4,000 a month, that's $48,000 a year, or $150,000 over 3 years. You would get to keep $75,000 of that plus 3 years appreciation, which is $150,000 or $225,000 over 3 years with current prices. If you think that houses are going to come down by more than $225,000 in the next 3 years, then you should wait. Is that going to happen? I don't think so. I think we're going to see another 10 to 20% correction over the next 18 months. So we can keep going on here, but I think you get the idea. Basically, we need more houses in California. We need less regulations, and we need the federal funds rate to not just be a universal blanket for all 50 states. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the Federal Reserve, but I do think there could be a number of improvements made to that. And one of that would be the bifurcation of the federal funds rate from corporate to personal. I think that there should actually be two different federal funds rate, but I'm going to make an entire video about that. All right, as always, if you'd like a personal consultation or you'd like some information on a house, all of my contact information is below. Feel free to reach out.